Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Berkeley County Board of Education meeting this May 25th, 2021. I call the meeting to order. I declare the quorum of members present. The meeting has been notified. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So, Mr. Chair. Second.
A motion from Mr. Wright, second from Ms. Littleton. All in favor of approving the agenda, respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, 7-0. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the Berkeley County Board of Education executive session meeting for May 10, 2021?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Wright, a second from Mr. Roan. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it by a vote of 7-0. The motion is approved. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the board meeting on May 11th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Wofford, a second from Ms. Littleton. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Mr.
Excuse me.
Mayor,
Excuse me.
it's just you need to ask for discussion even if there isn't any, so for it to be a valid motion, so sorry.
Well taken, thanks. So we called the question, correct? Let's do this over. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the board meeting on May 11, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Wofford, a second from Ms. Littleton. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session on May 12, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Walker, a second from Ms. Littleton. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the Berkeley County School Board special meeting on May 19, 2021?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Wright, a second from Mr. Roan. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. Do we have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved, Mr. Chair. Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Wright, a second from Ms. Littleton to enter into executive session. Is there any discussion? Stated purposes of executive session are to be discussion of settlement negotiations regarding pending litigation. 2C, discussion of employment, demotion, discipline, or release of an employee or employees as needed. 2D, discussion of employment, appointment, and compensation, including benefits for district administrative positions and for other positions to be appointed by the board during, including coordinator for federal and state programs. And 2E, 1 student attendance appeal and 2 student expulsion appeals. All in favor of the motion to enter into executive session, respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0. We are in executive session. Do we have a motion to return to regular session?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Littleton and a second from Ms. Walker. Is there any discussion? All in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. We have 7-0. The motion carries. We are in regular session. For the record, no action was taken in executive session. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. The next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. In order to conduct the meeting in an orderly and efficient manner, we ask that you honor the following guidelines. Stakeholder comments are welcomed and encouraged. However, the board will not take immediate action on public comments at this meeting. Any person wishing to address the board must register prior to the meeting. Comments regarding complaints against employees other than district-level executives or references to students other than the child of the speaker will not be heard in public session. Groups addressing the same topic should select one speaker. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The board chair reserves the right to allot additional time or halt public comments that do not adhere to the guidelines. Ladies and gentlemen, I took a couple of moments to read the citizen comment requests, and some of these do not comply with the guidelines. As you recall, if you read the rules and regulations, the guidelines, we cannot speak about a particular employee unless it's a district level employee. However, if a comment is involving your particular child, then that public comment is acceptable and is appreciated. The first speaker is Krista Buchanan, 8th grade class at Marrington Middle. Please adhere to the guidelines.
Yes, sir. My name is Krista Buchanan. I'm a parent of an 8th grade student at Marrington Middle School. Approximately 2 weeks ago over dinner, my virtual 8th grader demonstrated to me that her principal's Google Classroom and Google profile had, quote, gone gray and unresponsive. Upon calling the office the next day to inquire, I was told that the administrator had been replaced. At no time did anyone think it was prudent to notify parents of this change. My virtual student was not notified of this change at all by anything other than unresponsive links to a Google profile. It's understandable that things happen behind the scenes and that parents and students may not be privy to. It's understandable that there are changes to staff during the school year. What is not understandable is not notifying this and communicating this properly to parents and students at the time that it's occurred. I now have an 8th grader that's been virtual for over a year. The teachers have come and gone by grade level or by semester. The one constant that these students have available to them has been whisked out under secrecy. The one person that these students relied on for support and affirmation is missing, with zero explanation and the message to move on 4 weeks before the end of school. These students and this staff have gone through a roller coaster ride in public education in the last year and a half. And now my 8th grader has little interest in finishing the year or attending a promotion ceremony to be told, quote, I am proud of you, and quote, you did it, by a stranger. I wonder, as a parent, whether the students were a forethought in this process or an afterthought in this process. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Melissa Soul, 8th graders at Marrington Middle School of the Arts. Please adhere to the guidelines, Ms. Soul.
Yes, sir. The Bcsc mission statement states that this district aims to ignite a passion for worldwide knowledge and skills through dynamic instruction and personalized education opportunities. This is all talk though, because you had the most dynamic leader in front of students, preparing them and nurturing them through the most difficult period of their life, middle school, during a pandemic, and state testing. And you took them away and disrupted our kids' lives without even an explanation. Then replaced this extraordinary person who knew every single one of their students, names, likes, and stories, replaced them with a person who had zero middle school experience and did not think enough to notify the parents of this change. He has yet to even notify us of the June schedule that will be modified for passing students for graduation. We expect open communication because we have always had it. We want that for our kids. We want to see that model to our kids. We want the level of respect for our kids and parents returned. We want our principal back. To remove them before 8th grade promotion when they got these kids through a pandemic is disrespectful to us, to our kids, and to them personally. The level of support this has received should be all you need to know to make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next speaker is Lacey Nelson, 8th grade graduation. An incident at Philip Simmons Middle School that my 8th grade son was involved in. Please be very judicious here, Ms. Nelson, in your comments.
Can I ask a question before we get started?
Yes.
I know you made a statement about it's limited to 3 minutes.
Ma'am, I'm having an issue hearing you. Could you speak?
Yes, I know you limited to 3 minutes. I have 2 subjects, and you said that if you have a group of someone with the same issue, that you only need 1 speaker. So is that okay if I just elaborate on one of the subjects?
No, you have to state what you're speaking with, and if there's another individual that has a similar concern, that they can speak for themselves as well.
Okay, I misunderstood you, so thank you. So my name is Lacey. I have an 8th grade student at Philip Simmons Middle School. My son was in part of an incident that happened with a student and another student. A naked picture of a student was being passed around throughout the school. So I received a phone call one day and stating that I needed to bring my son's cell phone in. I asked why. At the present time, he did not have his cell phone with him because I took it away from him the night before. So after that incident happened, they wanted me to turn his cell phone in. I did not because I felt like it's my cell phone that I pay money for, and I felt like the situation was not being handled the correct way. So at that time, he missed the last 2 periods of his class. When the principal called and told me what happened, I stated what I said to you guys. I'm not turning the cell phone in because my son did not pass the picture around. He received the picture, and when he received it, it was at 11:49 p.m., January 6th. That was at night. That was 11 minutes before 12 a.m. the next morning. When I went back and I looked at the picture, my son was out of school from December to January 21st because he plays sports. Each time a child has become infected or tested positive for COVID or came in contact with someone who tested positive, he had to stay home. So I'm trying to figure out why is it that my child missed 2 of his last period classes for an incident where he did not receive that message while he was on school property. I was told from Officer Jackson, who is the resource officer, that he received it while on the bus. He did not receive it on the bus. My child only rides the bus in the afternoon time. I was told it would happen in the morning time. So I'm just wanting answers to why this situation took place, and I'm wondering, does the school board have an idea of what happened? So I was told from the principal that she was out of it, and it was turned over to Berkeley County Sheriff's Department. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. The next speaker is Deborah Williams. This is a rather private matter, Ms. Williams. I can refer this to the school administration and to the superintendent for your information. However, if you would like to continue, be very judicious in what you have to say.
Okay, so the incident is the same as Lacey one is, but I kept calling to the school to find out what was going on with the cell phone, because actually it's really my cell phone because I paid a bill for it. And my grandson, he said he never got the picture for the phone, but all of the phones was taken away that day, which was all right because they wanted the phone to be locked. here at. And I was told that the phones were coming to Berkeley, to the sheriff department to get marked. Okay, on May the 6th, I keep calling and asking about the phone. So on May the 6th, I was in Mounts Corner and I went by the sheriff's office. I talked to the one officer that marked all of the phones in Berkeley County on that, and he said he don't even have any kind of information that some phones from Phillips Simmons came to Mounts Corner. On that same day, the officer called my grandson in the office and got some information from him without me knowing, because he lives with me. He's under my care. And I called Officer Jackson the next day and asked him, did she get information from my grandson? And did she have the right to get information from him without a parent being, there with him? So we went back and forth with that, and then she comes up with and told me that she don't have any contact for me, which that's not true, because the day that this incident happened, she contacted me and told me I had to come to the school to sign paper to keep the phone. So after we went back and forth with that, she told me that, well, I told your next door neighbor, which is my sister-in-law that works in the school, to have her to have me to call her. My sister-in-law is not on his contact, and besides, her office, if you have been to Phillips Simmons School, her office is right in front of the school secretary. They have all of the information. And I told Officer Jackson, I told him that I don't feel like she should have called him in and questioned him about any kind of information without a parent's being there, because he's only 14. And that's the incident that I have because of me. And I felt that what she did, she brought him and got information, and then she thought about contacting me later. So I had to call and ask her, did she have the right to get any information from him? And that's the issue I have with that.
The next speaker is Sarah Gibbs. Grandson was involved in an incident in Phillips Simmons Middle School.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Gibbs, and it's the same situation that the other two parents came up with. And my question is, we don't know what is going on. We haven't got any information on anything. All we know that the phones were taken away. The principal doesn't have any information to give the parents on where to stand, when the kids gonna get their phone back, or anything. No one is communicating with the parents. So I would appreciate if we can get someone from the school board, either the superintendent or somebody, to let us know as parents what is going on with our children's phone and the position that they're in with this situation.
Thank you, ma'am. As I indicated earlier, we certainly will ask the superintendent and his staff to look into this and get some correspondence as soon as possible. Next is Anastasia Minus, son involved in an incident at Phillips Simmons Middle School.
I'm not going to speak on that situation because apparently everyone else has already spoken on it. My biggest concern today is I want to know why they canceled the children's graduation ceremony and why we have to do a drive-through graduation. There's other schools around us that are having graduation ceremonies. The school is Phillips Simmons Middle, by the way. The other schools surrounding us are having graduation ceremonies. The high school, which is basically the same school, is having a graduation ceremony, but Phillips Simmons has to have a drive-through parade instead of an actual ceremony. So that's the biggest concern to me right now. My son wants to walk across the stage and get his middle school diploma.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is, can't really read the first name, but it's Davis. The topic is academic fairness, management, and control. I'm sorry, sir, but I had some issues.
I'm here again this week in behalf of some parents, citizens. Last meeting, we asked for a management control to be put in place by the school board that would allow for parents to be notified prior to any of the 16-19 project being taught in the school. We're concerned, we didn't get a response the first week, so we left a call to the school board and asked them, how about call us and tell us what's going on? No response. We think it's important. It's a controversial issue. The other thing is, just briefly, and then I'll come back to this, is policy. One of the things, and this is a paraphrase, of course, in the board's policy is to engage with the citizenry. Two-way engagement, whatever the venue might be. I don't think this is the venue. Now, going back to the process, and that policy says one of the reasons for it is to educate the citizens. We're all for it. Okay, so we'd like to see that. Going back to the management request that we made, we didn't try to get into the business of the school board, but we want to make a suggestion because we didn't get an answer back. We think it's simple to put that control in place. And the place to put it in control is at the teacher's level. Now what I'm about to say has nothing to do with being derogatory to all the teachers that are in here. Okay? There's thousands of teachers in K-12 in the state. What we suggest to simplify the process is let the teachers know. All we want to know before you implement it is to let the parents know. Okay? So this begs a question. Why do you want to know? Well, there's a variety of reasons. Okay? Not the least of which is so the parents, in the sanctity of their homes, can discuss the issue prior to being implemented. Please get back to us on this most important issue. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Victoria Coward. Republicans value our teachers.
Good evening to our board and guests and fellow citizens. My name is Victoria Coward. I'm here as a citizen of Berkeley County, as the chair of the Berkeley County Republican Party as well. It's a great honor to represent the members of the party here in Berkeley County and the state Republican Party as well. That said, I'm here tonight to deliver a simple message. Republicans wear red too. We wear red, white, and blue for education, and I suspect we have more in common than not. To make my point, I'd like to tell a quick story. In 2002, on August 9th, I went to labor at 8:30 in the morning. Our daughter Olivia was born the next morning at 5:30. Through the course of that miraculous event, I had the pleasure of meeting 3 shifts of nurses. They were a blessing to my family and helped immeasurably to bring her into the world after 9+ hours of pushing. Fast forward to 2020, and that same daughter graduated from high school in this district after years of being instructed, led, and cared for by a litany of teachers and administrators. Again, they were a blessing to my family and helped immeasurably to instruct the mind of a beautiful young lady. And I share this to say the nurses in that hospital, like the teachers in our schools, are our front lines and are blessings to us all. That said, the hospital does not exist for nurses, and the schools do not exist for teachers. Hospitals exist for patients, and schools exist for students. Students must be our first priority. Every action, word, deed, thought any among you engages in or has should start first with these questions. How does this action I'm thinking of taking or supporting benefit the students? How does this action I'm thinking of taking or supporting add value and enhance the capacities of the students? How does this action I'm thinking of taking or supporting prepare students for their futures? Again, nurses are a blessing. Teachers are a blessing. They brought my daughter into this world and have encouraged her and taught her from then until now. And we, the Republican Party, stand behind these public servants who hold the lives and minds of these students, our children, in their hands. And we thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jay King, curriculum plan going forward.
Good evening, I'm Jay King, from Good Street. I've been hearing a lot about critical race theory, the 1619 project lately, and how it's making its way into our schools. I believe this is the wrong approach to teaching our children how to grow up and respect themselves and each other. Critical race theory is designed to instruct white people that they are inherently bad from birth solely based on the color of their skin, something which they cannot change. This curriculum reeks of racism and bigotry. We fought a war over slavery that cost the lives of 750,000 soldiers. We worked our way through the Jim Crow era and passed federal and state laws guaranteeing equal rights and equal protection under the law. Critical race theory spits in the face of all the progress we've made as a country and is trying desperately to drag us back into a day when there was division between races and people in our country. Regarding the 1619 project, in 1619, the Spanish ship with 20 slaves on it was heading to the Caribbean when it was captured and redirected to Jamestown. The 1619 project teaches that these slaves were sold to the settlers in Jamestown, thus making slavery the foundation on which our country was founded. This is factually incorrect. Slavery was not legal in Jamestown. When that ship landed, it is correct that the slaves were taken off of the ship, but they were designated as indentured servants, not slaves. They had a standard 7-year period of servitude, at which point after the 7-year term, they were each given a plot of land to live on. This is the same exact treatment that was given to tens of thousands of Europeans who came over on that same indentured servant plan. Europeans who couldn't afford the passage over to the New World signed a 7-year indentured servant contract to come here. In return for payment for the trip over here, they agreed to work for 7 years for the person who paid for the passage, and in addition to passage over here, the person would receive room and board for the 7 years and a small plot of land when their term was completed. They were almost always offered a job by the people they had been working for the preceding 7 years. This same actual application applied to those 20 slaves who were actually indentured servants. I'm thinking that we cannot allow this flavor of the day to work its way into our schools and further divide us as a society, especially since this foundation is factually incorrect. You just can't rewrite history and claim it's true. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker is Terry Hardesty, Barrow for you.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm going to read the determination made by the U.S. Equal Opportunity Employment Commission in regards to the FOIA. I issue the following determination to the merits of this charge. Respondent is an employer within the meaning of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 as amended, and Title VII and timeless deferral and all other requirements for coverage have been met. Charging party alleges she has been discriminated against in violation of Title VII because of her sex, which is female, in which she was subjected to a sexually hostile work environment by her immediate supervisor. Charging party further alleges she reported the sexual harassment on 2 occasions to management. Respondent contends in March 2004 to receive sexual harassment complaint from charging party. A full investigation was conducted according to policy. The conclusion of the findings indicated the alleged harasser did not intend to offend the charging party. Some of his conduct has made her feel uncomfortable. He was advised failure to follow the directives may result in disciplinary action. Examination of the evidence reveals that the charging party was subjected to sexual harassment from her supervisor. Charging party rejected her supervisor's advances and complained on 2 occasions to management. After her first complaint, respondent made no effort to investigate, and the harassment continued. Based on this analysis, I have determined that there is sufficient evidence to establish that there is a reasonable cause to believe the charging party was discriminated against in violation of Title VII. There's more to this, and I'm going to stop here because I have a question to ask. As a former member of this board, we were often charged with, as a board, hearing employee complaints and appeals for decisions made in this district. And I would want to know how this board, sitting here in this configuration, will have the moral authority to make any kind of adjudication regarding an employee that comes up before you with a similar situation. I've also been asked, what can this board do? Well, there's several things you can do. You can ask for the person to resign. You could ask for the governor to remove him. At least you could remove him as your chairperson. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is any action that's required for items from executive session.
I didn't get to speak, Mr. Chairman. Did you not get my card?
Ma'am, I have 11 cards, and there were 11 people that spoke. I do not have another card. If there is an additional card and you put it in on time, we will certainly hear it. What's your name, ma'am?
Margaret Johnson.
You're actually correct because it was hidden under one of the other ones. It was Margaret Johnson is curriculum perspective.
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, please accept my apology. It was not intentional.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, school board members, Superintendent Ingram. In the early 1970s, I refused to put my children in school, opting at that time to homeschool them. In conjunction with this decision, I became active in the homeschooling movement because of many factors. Among those were educational changes already apparent and referred to them by such titles as revisionist history, sex education, situational ethics, values clarification. And to these concerns, of course, the dumbing down of all subject areas. Some people were concerned about where these changes would lead. Now we know where they would lead, as we see the outcome codified as programs and curricula with names like critical race theory, 1619 Project, culturally responsive education, social emotional learning, gender identity, or more accurately, confusion, and several others. These concepts have no place in our schools, and they have reached the end of the line. The majority of citizens and taxpayers, I believe, do not want this to progress any further. Too many of these counterproductive efforts create division, hostility, fear, hatred, non-achievement, despair, loss of pride in our country, lies, whole systems of dishonesty and repression to support these ideas, and a myriad of other negative consequences. If you say there is no critical race theory in the schools in this county, that would be a lie. All of these concepts have been well embedded in public education for years. They have actually reached the point where proponents now openly call CRT and other social engineering efforts what they are and brazenly promote their tenets. Unfortunately, it has taken nearly 2 generations since I began to homeschool for the people of this country to wake up. They're awake now. We will no longer sit idly by under the pretense that our teachers and administrators are trustworthy and dedicated to our country, our children, or our future. It is time to stop these dangerous activities and actually use the time children are in school to offer them information, knowledge, skills, and opportunities so they will have the freedom to enjoy safe and fulfilling lives in our great country. They need academic basics along with skills, trades, college prep, and options to college during their elementary through high school years. Students of different abilities and aptitudes deserve opportunities to be successful and to feel they have value because of what they achieve and do, not by whether they can pass a test that may or may not reflect each student's unique potential. Members of the school board who oversee the education of our children, and administration and teachers who directly decide what happens during each school day. I am not alone in urging you to reconsider where you think you will take the schools in Berkeley County and what you will give to the children here. The choices you make will have consequences that even you may not like very much. I suggest you choose no longer to be part of the continuing destruction of public education, our county, our state, and our country, as well as the future of every child over whom you wield power or influence. Thank you.
Now, Section 5, any action is required from items from executive session.
Mr. Chair, I move to authorize the superintendent to execute a release with Green Finney and Lyric Finney based on the terms discussed in executive session.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Walker. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All agreed, say aye. Aye. Nay. The ayes have it by a vote of 7-0. The motion passes. Entertain a student attendance appeal.
Mr. Chair, I move that we... Sorry. Mr. Chair, I move to deny the student appeal for attendance appeal. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I move to deny the appeal for student number 1 for attendance appeal.
We have a motion from Ms. Wright to deny the appeal of the attendance appeal. Second by Ms. Littleton. Is there any discussion? We'll call the question. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it
Nay.
unanimous. Excuse me.
Nay.
I'm sorry, did I call for a nay? Okay. The motion still carries 6-1. We also have a student expulsion appeal for student number 1. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we accept the appeal of student number 1 and provide blended education for him.
Second.
I have a motion from Ms. Littleton, a second from Ms. Walker, to accept the appeal and offer the student blended instruction for the remainder of the school year. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it 7-0. The motion carries. We also have a student student expulsion appeal for student number 2. Do we have a motion?
And the student number 2, I move that we grant the appeal and assigning a student to Berkeley Alternative School.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Walker and a second from Ms. Littleton to assign the student to the Berkeley Alternative School for the remainder of the school year. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it unanimous, 7-0. The motion carries. We also have some other HR motions.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept the recommendation of the administration to approve that formal complaint and report of unprofessional conduct for one teacher to be sent to the State Board of Education to ask that appropriate action be taken against the employees for unprofessional conduct as discussed during the executive session.
We have a motion from Ms. Littleton. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Ms. Wofford to accept the recommendation of the administration to approve the formal complaint and report of unprofessional conduct for one teacher to be sent to the State Board of Education to ask that appropriate action be taken against the employee for unprofessional conduct as discussed during the executive session. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it unanimous, 7-0.
Mr. Chair, I move to accept the recommendation of the administration to approve a formal complaint and report of the breach of contract for one teacher to be sent to the State Board of Education to ask that appropriate action be taken against the employee as discussed during the executive session.
A motion from Ms. Walker, do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. LaRue. The motion is to accept the recommendation of the administration to approve that a formal complaint and report of a breach of contract for one teacher to be sent to the State Board of Education to ask that appropriate action be taken against the employee for unprofessional conduct as discussed during the executive session. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimous. The motion carries. We have one more motion.
Mr. Chair.
Positive motion.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I move to accept the recommendation of the administration to name Ms. Johnson McElveen as the new coordinator for federal and state programs with a contract to take effect on July 12th, 2021.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Walker, a second from Ms. Littleton. The motion is to accept the recommendation of the administration to name Ms. Johnson McElveen as the new coordinator for federal and state programs with a contract to take effect on July 12, 2021. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it unanimous. Congratulations, Ms. McElveen. Take a bow. It'll be an appropriate time for you to take a picture if you have. Do you have any family or friends with you tonight? Well, perhaps Brian. Yeah, Brian, how about get a picture of him, if you will. The next items on the agenda are reports from standing committees. First, a report from the Committee on Academics and Innovation. Chairwoman Kathy Littleton, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, the Committee on Academics and Innovation met on May 11, 2021. On recommendation of the committee, I move to approve the Head Start budget expenditure report for March 2021 and Head Start credit report for March 2021.
We have a recommendation from committee, and a second is required. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Also, the committee met earlier this evening, and on recommendation of the committee, I move to approve a one-year exception to the promotion criteria of students in grades 6 through 8 for the 2020-2021 school year by modifying the sections of Bcsc policy IKE as presented.
We have a recommendation from committee. No second is required. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously, 7-0. The motion is adopted.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Next is the Committee on Finance and Capital Planning. Mr. McQuillan, the chairman, is not here tonight, but Mr. Wright will assume those responsibilities.
Mr. Chairman, the Committee on Finance and Capital Planning met on May 11, 2021. And on the recommendation of the committee, I move to approve the out-of-state travel as presented.
We have a recommendation from committee. No second is required. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Ayes have it, 7-0. The motion is adopted.
Also, on the recommendation of the committee, I move to approve the first reading of 2021-2022 general fund budget as presented.
We have a recommendation from committee. No second is required. Is there any discussion? Ms. Walker.
I just wanted to express my concern about the amount of funding that's going to come out of the reserve fund for 2021, 2022, when we need to build buildings. Just want to put that on the record.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes, I'd like to point out that over and above our raises for the teachers, we're spending $1.5 million on positions that I think we could wait until the middle of the year to see whether or not that fund comes in.
Is there any other discussion?
I too have concerns about the budget, and I do think that going into the new year, coming out of the pandemic, that we do not know what's going to happen. So above what we already approved, that we should see how the school year is going to be, and then we can always add positions going into it and not necessarily just add them now. Because we can always add, we can never, take away. It's like having your own personal checking account. You don't spend before you have it. So I think that we should just be conservative going in. So that's another concern that I have.
I'd like to state that I am in full support of the budget. Ms. Smith and her team has done an outstanding job of communicating with not only the cabinet level members before us tonight, but throughout the entire district with the building level principals, Dr. Ingram, and board members as well. So yes, there is an issue with some funds coming from the fund balance. The fund balance is strong, it is viable, it is in excess of, I think it's around $85 to $86 million. And I do not think that the total of $7 million, which is basically what we looked at the other day, is actually going to come to fruition, because I think we can have some cost savings and some additional funding. So I would encourage the board to consider that before we do our final vote. Having said that, we will call the question. All in favor of the motion to approve the first reading of the general budget, say aye. 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 All opposed, nay.
Nay.
We have a 4-3 vote. The motion carries. The first reading of the general budget is approved.
Also, on recommendation of the committee, I move to approve the 2021-2022 elementary, middle, and high school supply travel allocated funds and high school sport funds as presented.
We have a recommendation from committee and no second is required. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The ayes have it, 7-0, the motion carries.
Also, on recommendation of the committee, I move to approve award of RFQ 597-20-21 to the Building Envelope Enclosed Group and WM Building Envelope Consultant LLC as an indefinite delivery contract for roofing and building envelope consultant for a maximum term of 2 years or until the maximum contract value of $300,000 is reached, with no single project to exceed $100,000.
We have a recommendation from committee and no second is required. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously, 7-0.
Also, on recommendation of the committee, I move to approve the award of IFB 601-20-21 for athletic field paint to Pioneer Manufacturing Company for an initial term of 1 year with an estimated annual contract value of $30,419.04, with the option to renew for 4 additional 1-year terms for a potential contract value of $152,095.20.
We have a recommendation from committee. No second is required. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Also, on recommendation of the committee, I move to approve IFB 605-20-21 for chemicals for facilities to be purchased on an as-needed base for the initial term of 1 year for the estimated annual value of $37,061.63, with an option to renew for 4 years, additional 1 year term for a potential contract value of $185,308.15.
We have recommendation from committee. No second is required. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0.
Also, on recommendation of committee, I move to lease the parcel to the Goose Creek Goose Creek, subject to following terms. The city of Goose Creek would cover any costs associated with the transaction. The city of Goose Creek would execute a disclaimer and indemnification agreement, which would establish that Berkeley County School District has made no representation concerning the parcel will not have any continuing responsibility for the parcel while in the use of the city.
We have recommendation from committee. No second is required. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Ayes have it, 7-0. The motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, this concludes my report, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Next is a report from the Committee on Human Resources, Chairperson Tanner. Ms. Tanner is by way of telephone, but she does have the documentation to do the report.
Mr. Chairman, the Committee on Human Resources met on May 11, and on recommendation of the committee, I move to approve the first reading to revise policy GCCAA sick leave.
We have a recommendation. We have a recommendation from committee. No second is required. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion carries by a vote of 7-0.
Also on recommendation of the committee, I move to approve the first reading to revise policy GBC, staff compensation, payroll practices, and deductions.
We have a recommendation from committee. No second is required. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The ayes have it, 7-0.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Tanner. The next item is number 9A, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Ingram.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members, cabinet members, members of the audience. Our COVID cases are still low. Last week we had a total of 34 cases, 21 student cases, 6 blended, 7 staff cases, 2 staff close contacts, 101 student contacts. That's pretty remarkable considering we have over 25,000 students back face-to-face and all of our 5,000 employees still very, very low. And I'm appreciative of all of everyone's efforts. It's certainly been a task. We've had several proms so far this year. From the reports I've received, they've been good overall, and I appreciate all the planning that went into it. I've been part of that process years ago when I was a high school principal and even as a teacher, and I can tell you it's not easy. It's a lot of work, and I think it's especially challenging given our predicament of COVID, but we've managed to do that. Lots of places across the country have still canceled those kinds of things, and I'm really glad we were able to have them. We'd like to congratulate Phillips Simmons High School. They won state titles in men's and women's track, as well as men's tennis. So congratulations to the Iron Horses. And I have to give a shout out here. Congratulations to Cane Bay High's Jalen Boudreaux, who led Cane Bay High in the 4x100 4x400 relay team to a state title. Jalen has the top time in the state for the 110-meter hurdles at 14.15 seconds and is #1 in the state and the nation in the 400-meter hurdles with a time of 52.71 seconds. Fastest time in the country, folks. Jalen is a junior and will be competing for K-Bay next year, so special shout out. Gosh, it's kind of cool to be able to say that, you know, my last month here, I just kind of cool, you know. Had to come to South Carolina, win a state title in anything, and then been able to do that several times as a superintendent. It's been fun to watch, and our kids do so well. Judy, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you yet again for being here, and the teacher forum had a great conversation with them last week, and they've asked me to say something special on my last board meeting, and I will, but I'll keep that secret. But they asked me to share it with the board and for the audience on my last board meeting. I'll do that. It was a delightful group of teachers. I could say to the community, your kids are in good hands with our teachers. We have really good teachers. I take them anywhere, and I'm gonna miss them. But anyway, still got a little while to go before I have to say all that. So, we have one more item of business, Mr. Chair. You do have your board meeting dates for next year that you would need to, someone would need to make a motion on that. And I understand there's a change to request, so I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ingram. As part of the board chair comments and report, I was going to add this, but it's an appropriate time right now because we have added the request of administration with Mr. Jackson and Ms. Smith and myself, and also we need some training and some workshops to catch us up to speed on some issues, as well as Dr. Richardson being here with us. Welcome, Dr. Richardson, your first board meeting as General Counsel. Welcome, and we're glad to have you here. She's also serving dual purpose as our parliamentarian, and she is extremely well-versed in many areas of school law, so I'm looking forward to a workshop. The retreat will be on Saturday, July 17th at 1 p.m. In Panopolis from 9 to 4. And I will have a motion now. I will read a motion, and I'd like to have somebody second and vote on it. Motion to approve the 2021-2022 board meeting dates for second reading as presented.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Barrow, a second from Ms. Littleton. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. The motion carries. Second reading is concluded with the workshop at 1 p.m. as well as a regular meeting on July 13 and 27.
I was like, can I have a moment of personal privilege? I also wanted to acknowledge the Berkeley softball team and the Berkeley baseball team.
Oh, how come?
They are both in the lower state series this week. We have some personal ties. Lacey's daughter is on the softball team, but two really good teams, and they are in a 3-game series. So tomorrow night, baseball will be home. And the girls can clinch lower state tomorrow if they win. So both Berkeley baseball and softball are in the lower state series.
And forgive me for that, but the state is still going on. We haven't finished yet. And to Lacey's credit, she doesn't brag about that. She hardly. I mean, we talk a lot during the day, but she just doesn't talk about that a lot. And I think you do deserve those kudos. So thank you.
And include both. I will say both teams from the same school.
Yeah,
both teams
cool.
lower state.
It's cool.
So where does the girls play tomorrow?
Girls played Ashley Ridge. They won. Girls won last night. And the boys dropped one to Somerville. So Berkeley will be playing Somerville at home tomorrow.
Well, we are Berkeley strong.
Yes, we are.
We are. Thank you for that, Ms. Warren.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your report, Dr. Green?
It does.
Just a couple of reminders for board members. Please see Lacey if you finish your Head Start video, the governance training, we need to sign that you've done that. So if you've done that, please see Lacey immediately following the meeting. And the other thing, if you haven't already, I think most of us have already made our plans for graduation. A couple of board members have not necessarily gotten in touch with Lacey, so make sure that you do that. For one, I am going to attend each and every one of them, and I would encourage all of our board members to attend as many as possible. See, I'm retired. I can do these things, and I will. My wife and I are proud to represent the school district and the school board in that. And I think that concludes. Yes, if you need any regalia, gowns, whatever, just let Dr. Ingram and Mr. Jackson know. And I will at this time entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Walker. Ms. Littleton is second. Is there any discussion? Thankfully, no. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. We are adjourned.